The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Juan Orlando Hernández Alvarado, President of the Republic of Honduras. I request protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Juan Orlando Hernández Alvarado, President of the Republic of Honduras, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Señor Presidente, señores.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, heads of state and government, Mr. Secretary General, permanent representatives and delegates, it's with a special pleasure that I come from a beautiful land called Honduras to extend my greetings to you. The beginning of a history of my country, and in recent years, my country has suffered a major tragedy compared to the overall history of our republic. Corruption went unpunished, which created a vicious circle of gangs who managed to, and criminals that managed to penetrate all sectors of societies. We were, and we are continuing to deal with this impunity to the last day of my government. At one point, we were the country that was the most dangerous in the world. Now we no longer are. We had a homicide rate which is one of the highest. Today, it's been reduced by half. We worked with the police. We set up investigation mechanisms, investigation of networks of criminal organized crime, and now we have much stronger institutions. The gangs and criminal groups were armed like the drug traffickers. They used extortion, assassination, massacres. They managed to penetrate demonstrations that then became violent with bloodshed, burnings. They took over communications and public order forces. These groups were allied with and friends of some politicians who declared themselves confessed friends and close collaborators of these criminal groups. This enemy has as its goal to get rid of the rule of law, with the loss of more than 600,000 lives in the last decade, more than all the loss of life in the Vietnam War of the United States. Violence manifested by these groups affected the economy, security, and national sovereignty. We need to consider these groups, these transnational groups, as non-state entities which are violators of fundamental rights. For instance, the Salvatrucha, Mara, and the Pandilla 18 group. Tell me if what I just mentioned is not abuse of basic human rights. And I leave you with a question: why today can we still not find international legal backing to hold accountable these criminal groups, drug traffickers, and organized crime and gangs? Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, we created new institutions, restructured the architecture of our institutions to make it more robust, to prepare it to be able to grapple with organized crime. And here I'd like to express my gratitude to the judiciary of my country, the public ministry, the police, military, intelligence agents, and all Hondurans who have had to deal with this fight with us, who stood with us, courageous men and women with a great deal of integrity, who gave up everything, some even gave up their lives. We had land, sea, and other raids to fight drug trafficking. We created extradition. We extradited the highest drug lords. And we also prosecuted money laundering crimes. We created reform for the penitentiary system. And today we have special forces, which are anti-extortion and anti-gangs, which are highly effective. This fight has not been easy. Today, I stand here to denounce that through this fight that we started and that we're continuing against organized crime, I am subject to attacks on my life, and now they're waging a dirty war against my reputation. Corrupt, confessed killers, some businessmen who work with these criminals and finance them, even politicians have been financed by them. Truly, it's an international structure which is political in nature and has no problem working with the criminal world. It promotes hatred. It creates fear in social communicators, making us censor ourselves because we're fearful. Other have the job of making our society sick by using social networks and other media in order to infiltrate and make us feel sick with this disinformation. Some academics call this a fourth-generation war. Pay attention to this. With that, they're creating destabilization, chaos, intimidation activities, and they attack the economy, they attack institutions, create trans cultures, and a war which is a disinformation war. And we are victims of these political attacks where there are dark interests at stake. They want to destabilize the country. And they also come from Venezuela, led by Nicolás Maduro's regime, with a partner in Honduras whose name is Mencelaya. This is not a news story, nor am I the first or the only one to talk about it. This is a topic of global dimensions. Ladies and gentlemen, drug trafficking, gangs, organized crime, armed groups, they create violence which slows developing and is an assault on the dignity of the human being. This creates forced and irregular immigration. Criminal organizations, coyotes, NGOs, and politicians who are unscrupulous seek to use this. They organize caravans of migrants and take thousands of children, mothers, families, even women who are pregnant. They induce them to risk their lives in a journey that involves false promises. Is that not a crime? Of course it is, exploiting these people for profit. They are exploiting the freedom and the life of human beings. That's what's at stake. In the year 2014, halfway through my presidency, I said that irregular immigration should be tackled at the roots, with shared responsibility and differentiated responsibility, strengthening institutions, security, and prosperity. That is why states we must promote opportunity so that the disenfranchised and the vulnerable can be included. Honduras is doing its part with macroeconomic policies which are responsible and should help the economy generate stability, help us to promote investment, create jobs, and have access to concessional loans from multilateral agencies for productive and social infrastructure to be put in place. And in that direction, I'd just like to stop to express my gratitude to the government and people of Mexico for the support they have promised us to create opportunities, entrepreneurship, and to massively promote reforestation with the program to plant trees. I should also like to thank Secretary General Guterres, because yesterday in our bilateral meeting, he committed to fighting to mobilize green zones, green funds, and to convene a summit of donors in order to finance the integrated Central American Development Plan. We in Honduras have put in place a plan to promote small business, to help them strengthen, and to have access to white credit. And they create 70% of the jobs in our economy, 70%. But they only receive maybe sometimes 3% of the credits available in the financial system. And historically, this is not fair. In a very short period of time, more than 3,000 small businesses have been created under the program called My Company, My Child. Also, we've built Better Life, which is a platform for social protection to guarantee a minimum salary, food security, dignified jobs, creating competency building skills, capacity building. We've reached 4,000 beneficiaries, which is almost half of our population, with at least one intervention for each citizen. We are on the way to meeting the Sustainable Development Goals. We continue to support youth and to promote construction of our Honduras. We have an innovative program of more than 15,000 grants for national citizens used in national university, and hundreds of students are now studying specialties. They are studying in the best universities of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to refer to a very important topic now, which we talked about this morning.
One of the causes of migration is the coffee crisis due to the low prices, and also as a consequence of climate change. Honduras is the fifth producer in the world, it represents 5% of GDP, the production of coffee, and our harvest has dropped by 15%. We have had a shortfall of $400 million in the past 2 years of revenues. But this impact also is social, because 90% of those who produce coffee are small farmers, family farmers. You, all of you are coffee drinkers around the world. I want to ask all of you a question. If you would dare ask those who sell that cup of coffee to you whether they're paying a fair price to the producers, would you ask that question? Would you even consider it? Think about it. Think about it, because I am certain that if the answer is yes, that would be very powerful. It would be very powerful because it could change the lives of some 120 million families of coffee producers around the world. Mr. President, Secretary General, distinguished members of this General Assembly, now I would like to refer to a topic about which everyone is speaking, but on which there are no concrete results to be seen. Let us not fool ourselves. There are no concrete outcomes or results. We will continue waiting for flooding and droughts to hit us, for millions of people to be displaced without a future, and sometimes losing their lives. We're going to keep on seeing this. This is the reality. You want evidence of that? You want to experience that? Come to Central America. Come to Honduras. There are destructive rainfalls, extended droughts, plagues and diseases like we've never experienced before. This is what people call climate change, and now they call it climate crisis. The Index of Climate Risk, German Watch, indicates that Honduras, Puerto Rico, Myanmar are the three most affected countries by extreme climate events around the world. Those are the three countries that are the most affected. But, nevertheless, neither Honduras nor Puerto Rico nor Myanmar are countries that contribute the most to damaging the environment. That is not fair. We have to pay. We have to pay for something that is the responsibility of other countries. I believe that it is one of the greatest injustices of the 21st century. There are brethren countries where to obtain a glass of water might cost the equivalent of a life, the subsistence, the cost of subsistence for an entire life. I'm just wondering, would we have to wait for Honduras and the rest of the world for a glass of water to be the equivalent of a life, of someone's existence? I want to leave that up to your very conscience. We in Honduras cannot wait any longer. I repeat, we in Honduras, we've decided to wait no longer. There are places in my land where water is so scarce that it is a source of violence. You should know that. If oil was a cause of wars in the past, well, in the future, water will be a cause for wars. Do we have to wait for that to happen? Mr. President, Secretary General, Honduras has already begun its fight against climate change. We are investing our own resources, national resources, to confront this because we can no longer wait. For the past decade now, a decade ago, with a great fanfare, the so-called green climate funds were announced. But the bureaucracy and red tape in managing them makes it almost impossible to have access to them. And in my country, people ask me, is it simply a joke? And also, that is something that you should think about and leave it up to your conscience. In Honduras, we are developing systems for agricultural production adapted to climate change with our own resources. We're implementing technology, agricultural research centers. We are also building protected facilities for such as greenhouses, intelligent irrigation systems. We are conducting campaigns for reforestation, creating jobs, raising awareness among young people to preserve our forests. And we're doing with our own funding. Mr. President, Secretary General, it's now or never. Let us move from simply making speeches to taking action. We need to make those who are truly responsible for climate change responsible. We need to We need to combat drug traffickers, the Mara gangs, and others who violate human rights. But we also need to create a common front to fight for sustainable development. We also need to act against climate change if we want to live, if we want to survive, if we want to subsist. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank His Excellency Juan Orlando Hernández Alvarado, President of the Republic of Honduras, for the statement just made. May I request representatives to remain seated while we greet the head of state.